Let's have a discussion. People have questions. They would like answers. Let's talk about the issues. Confront the things that may be difficult to address. The Black narrative. Greetings, brothers and sisters. My name is Steve Muhammad, and you're tuned in to the Black narrative on the NNV News Network. And today, we're going to be talking about a very serious subject, so serious that this subject may be a lifesaver. We're going to be talking about the coming Great Famine. And, you know, many people, famine. So we're going to break it all down. We're going to break down why the famine is starting, and really it's already started, how you can prepare, and how you can prepare your house, your family, and your community. And today we're being joined by our sister, who is definitely a disaster preparedness advocate, Sister Tequella Muhammad. Also goes by on her Instagram, Divine by Nature One. And assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam, everyone. How are you?
Doing well, praise be to Allah. And you know, go more into some of the things that you do. You're a community volunteer, a student ministry in the student ministry class. You're an author, and you have, we'll just say, a beautiful family. We'll just put it out that way.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes, ma'am. And one of the things that we want to start off with really is a connection, and that is your Instagram name, Divine by Nature, because we as a people, we are divine by nature. And that is one of the real reasons why this famine is about to strike America, because we as a people, we are the chosen people. And all of this that we see coming on America is not by accident, but is literally prophetic, is by design.
That's right.
Would you like to speak more on that? And we'll go right on into it.
Yes, sir. All praises due to Allah. I just want to open up in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the most merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. And of course, I greet you all. But I want to greet you all again in the greeting words of peace and paradise of Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
And yes, sir. I saw the name Divine in one of the Messenger's books. I believe it was Message of the Black Man. And that name just kind of stood out because we are divine by nature, and divine means from God or like God. And I just thought that that was just significant, because that's our process in this world. Our process is to strive to be like God and strive to be in obedience to his will. So that's what came up with the name. Goal was just to be a living example of an MGT. I've had friends who've never been around a Muslim before. They've never had friends, you know, that were Muslim. And so to see a Muslim sister striving, you know, it gives them a whole different perception of who we are. And I pray that I'm doing a good job. I pray that we all are doing a good job striving to be in accord to Allah. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. And so we've done some interviews in the past,
Yes.
but this one is just so important, because I put it out there, and you know, in the comments, some people are asking what famine, and then they're asking when is the famine. So there are a number of our people, I would almost say the majority of our people, who are just totally unaware, because we don't see this talk in the mainstream media. They're talking about food supply lines and being disrupted, but they're really not talking about how people should prepare for this coming famine.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. But like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in The Time and What Must Be Done, he said, I don't mean to be a doom peddler. You know, he doesn't want to come, but he has a duty to teach and warn people of the judgment of this world. And so we're living in the judgment. We all can feel it. We all see it. if you ask anybody, we know that the time that we're living in is unlike any other time that we have ever lived in.
Mhm.
And with that being said, famine has been here for some years, actually. Famine is taking place, and the thing is, we really do not want to accept the fact. We still want to live life the way that we've been living life, and we want to ignore the fact that the judgment is here. We want to ignore COVID. We want to ignore. We just want to live and continue to live life, even though we're not getting freedom, justice, and equality in this world. We just want to pretend like it doesn't exist. And so, famine definitely has been here. Famine doesn't start where you just wake up and there's no food. It's a process. It's a process that has been taking place over time. And it started not only just with the loss of the farming, it started with just the genetically modified food that we're eating.
Right.
The food that we're eating is not even real food. So
Mhm.
that's the first sign that we're in famine. We're not even eating real food. So of course it looks like, it looks green, the apples look red, but it's not real. So I would say that we've been in famine for a while, and we just have to face the fact that we're in judgment and we're living in that time that Allah said was to come.
Right, absolutely. And so, and I'll look down every now and then because I definitely did some research and some notes
Okay.
for this. And when we go and we search for famine in the scriptures, I got 94 results for famine. And basically, famine is something that you see God using throughout the whole scripture.
That's right.
In the time of Joseph, in the time of Moses.
Right.
And so when we look at this famine that's coming, as you pointed out, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan represents a true and living God, just as Moses was representing Jehovah. And so the famine that struck with Moses and Joseph, these were not by accident. These were all by a divine plan.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, they were by divine plan, and that's the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan. And I reference A Time of What Must Be Done a lot because I've been really breaking it down and studying it, as well as the criterion that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan just gave to us July 4th of this year. And he mentioned that. He said that the famine that's coming is something that we've never experienced in the history of this world. And so there has to be a process to get to that famine. And like I said earlier, it had already begun. And we're in a judgment because this world cannot continue to go on the way that it's been going on. And the way that Allah deals with this world when he wants to change is he brings the weather and he brings calamities and storms and famine. And like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan mentioned, the pestilence from heaven that we're dealing with now with COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And then we're dealing with fire, in California and snow, in Denver, Colorado. So, he's pushing so many different things on us because he wants us to recognize that, this isn't just something that's just happening just to be happening.
Right.
And see, that's what people would say when they don't want to accept the time that we're living in. Oh, we always get, we always have hurricanes and we always have tornadoes. No, the weather that we're experiencing is unlike anything that we have seen.
That's right.
Most of the news articles are saying record breaking or biblical proportions or something that we've never witnessed before in my lifetime. So we have to know that these are the same type famine as far as when Moses was here.
That's right.
Everything's the same.
And the thing too is that there was a method, if you will, to the whole process, and that was to break the attraction, if you will, of the slaves to Pharaoh's riches. Right. They wouldn't separate because they were so enamored by what Pharaoh, or today modern day America, has, that God had to destroy the breadbasket, if you will, of Egypt and the breadbasket of America. So one of the things that I gave some reasons why this famine that is about to come upon America and the world, to the likes of which have never been seen before, and there will be no escaping. There will be
Yeah.
no way around it. Listen to some of these reasons. One, as you pointed out, would be the extreme weather.
Mm-hmm.
The extreme weather, the farmers get too much rain or too
Mm-hmm.
little rain or too much sun or too
Yep.
little sun. The pandemic has caused the migrants to not be able to go into the fields. Many of them are catching the COVID-19 coronavirus. The economic collapse, which is on its way.
Yeah.
We're talking about 100, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said,
100.
100% inflation. It's becoming difficult right now to even purchase food. And then civil unrest, because what will cause people to break out in civil unrest more than our stomachs being empty?
Exactly.
So would you like to add to that? And then we'll go right on into breaking down some of the causes of this great famine, and then some possible ways that we can survive through this.
Praise be to Allah. You mentioned it all. We can move on to the next, because you just mentioned pretty much everything. That's all that's taking place at the moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right. So let's look at the pandemic and its impact on on the food supply.
Mm-hmm.
We see that these farmers are, basically destroying their crops, their
Mm-hmm.
livestock. Can you talk a little bit about the food supply?
Yes, sir. Um, yeah, we've been seeing that earlier. I think it was I'm not sure if it was Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. I can look it back up, but they lost 14 million acres
Mm,
from a windstorm that destroyed soy, corn, and so many different things, all in like an hour.
mm,
An hour. And it
wow.
wasn't even a humongous storm,
Mm,
and I was driving out and I felt some effects from it. I know we're not close to that, but that day I was like, it's just a weird day. It
mm,
was storming here in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. And to come and look at the news and look at that the next day, I was like in shock. And I
mm,
posted it. I even posted it on my Facebook, and a lot of people wasn't looking at it like that. And I'm like, do you understand? And at that point, it was a million at first. It was a million acres. And I thought that was like, oh my gosh. Then I come back and they said it was up to 14 million acres at one time.
man.
So Allah is not playing with us. When he say famine, in our minds, we just can't think that famine can take place, because when we do go to the store, again, we see food.
Mm,
I told someone, I said, don't get distracted, because what you see in the grocery stores is an illusion.
mm,
It's an illusion. It's not real. They're gonna put up stuff, but I witnessed that the meat companies are shutting down. A lot of
mm,
the employees ended up getting COVID, so the meat factories are shutting down. A lot of the produce is shutting down. A lot of the stores can't produce, and when you go in the stores, they have multiple facings of so many different things. So, for example, apple juice usually have one or two facings. You see 6 facings of apple juice, so it looks like the store is full, but it's
mm,
not. Or it's a bunch of junk food or things that if you were to store those things in your home and try to survive, you wouldn't be able to survive for a
mhm,
long time. And so
mm,
we're witnessing this, and all over the country, farmers are having problems with their produce, the weather, and then it's one extreme after another extreme that is
mm,
causing um, crops to fall apart.
mm.
And so we're seeing that these are all signs of famine. When you look up famine, it'll show you those same signs, little things like that. When you look up the Great Depression, same things. Little tips led up to it, but nobody focused on that. We only focusing on the fact that we still see, food in the store, farmers, we're still growing things in our garden, but we can't imagine what it's like to be in true famine.
Right, right, right. Absolutely. And some of the things like you were saying about the farmers is that many of them are going out of business. They're
Mm-hmm.
literally going out of business because, what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wrote in the illuminating book Torchlight for America is that, the country, but in one chapter, he was focusing on FEMA and saying
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
these, as you were saying, that these natural disasters are, FEMA's running out of money. And
Yeah.
where are they getting this money from now?
Right.
they're literally printing this money on top of
Exactly.
thin air. They were literally printing it on top of thin air. And
Mm-hmm.
so the farmers, because of the extreme weather, and because of the pandemic, once again, they had to literally leave their crop rotting in the field.
Yeah.
Those farmers who had livestock slaughtered
Mm-hmm.
millions of pigs.
Millions of pigs. Yes.
And people will ask, well, why didn't they just send it to the grocery stores?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were saying that the factories are not set up to produce certain type, for instance, like a block of cheese.
Right.
It's saying that, they can't just forget the process, but the process is that usually you get your cheese in a certain way, but
Mm-hmm.
the way they have to send it out now is in these big blocks to these pantries and stuff, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't have the machines to
Mm-hmm.
produce that type of that way. So and so let's go right on into some of these, since I talked on it, the pantries. I mean, we're seeing miles lines going back miles in some situations. And I read an article just yesterday, and let me see, what does it say? It said that it says that it's being projected that the ranks of Americans fighting hunger are going to increase by 45% this year.
Mm-hmm.
45%. It says, meaning that over 54 million
Mm-hmm.
Americans
I was
across the
reading that too.
U.S. could starve could starve this year without help from food banks, food stamps, and other aids following the related economy fallout. So I heard you spoke on the food stamps and the food aid. Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Well, I mentioned it many times. You can have a car right now. That's why we know money won't be able to help us in this time when it comes to things that we've been taught to do, like store food and staple goods in our homes. Because you can have $1 million on your card right now. You can have $1,000 on your food stamp card. But if the store doors are closed, or if
Mm,
the stores are empty, what does that do for you? And we're not stocking and storing because we really don't think that it's going to affect us. A lot of us, we think we have more time,
mhm.
and that's what the minister talked about. We think that we have so much more time. We're not preparing for what could happen. We don't want to live in fear, but that's not living in fear. That's being prepared for the worst,
Mhm,
especially when you see what's taking place. And
mhm.
so, yeah, it's so many people getting food stamps, but right now you can be using those food stamps to stock and store up things in your homes. But the knowledge of the time, people are not being aware of that. And so I don't even believe next year they're going to be giving out food stamps like that. And even then, hyperinflation is going to kick in because, like
Right.
you said, the food lines are so long.
Mm,
I mean, I haven't been to Walmart since COVID hit. I
mm,
refuse. I rolled past one day and saw the carts lined up outside.
mm.
Down, I mean, I was just amazed, and I was like, "Wow!" So I'm thankful to Allah. I'm thankful for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for telling us and teaching us what to store in our homes, because this is the time that we're living in now, and people, again, even now, still don't see it.
Right, right. And it's right up on us, right
It's
up on
right up
us.
on us. Yes,
We
sir.
want to touch on a few because we really need to focus on how we can survive. And I'll just run through them real quick, and then
Okay.
you can comment on them, and we'll move on.
All
It
right.
says the death of the bees, and we know that bees are very important to
Mhm.
farmers. They're
Right.
very important to plants and crops because they help pollinate these crops.
Mhm.
The locusts, the swarm of locusts that have
Mhm.
devastated uh, large regions of Africa. There was even a locust swarm that shut down Mecca. Um, there's the food lines are growing. We just
Mhm.
touched on that. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on that is something that you just said, and something that we got to realize, and that is Black people, for the most part, we're living in food deserts. I mean, this situation is bad.
It's it's
We are
horrible.
living in food deserts. And I'm going to tell you, brothers and sisters, that Dr. Wesley, he pointed out something about the food that's being brought into our communities. It's not the
Mhm.
same food that's being brought into white communities.
Mhm.
And another fact is that If you go out into the white communities, their stores, to the most part, are well stocked. Now, I say all that to say this, and that is when the stuff hits the fan, that you're not gonna go out into no white neighborhoods and take no food out of their baby's mouth, because that's what they're thinking. You're not taking food off the shelf. You're taking food out of their children's mouth. And if you thought what happened in Katrina was bad, you wait until this famine happens. So I pray that you share this interview that we're doing right now with family, friends, and associates, because we're going to go into some solutions. We're going to go into how you can prepare yourself. And of course, the best preparation is, as the Christians always say, have that personal relationship with your Lord and Savior, and that's for real. Let's go into the book by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which is a survival manual, How to Eat to Live. Can you tell us about that book and how that is so really essential into us preparing for this great famine?
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Now, you said essential. That's beyond essential.
Right.
Because I have been pushing How to Eat to Live according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because that's what's going to save our life. Learning how to fast, not having the urge to eat day in and day out. Because again, what are you spending your dollar on when you go to the store? Are you going to get that 99-cent bag of Doritos, or are you going to go get a 99-cent bag of Navy beans? That's the decision. We're in the valley of decision in this day and time. Not only fasting, but learning to eat that one meal a day, and being able to get full off of just your Navy beans or your whole wheat bread, or your vegetables or your fruit. Being able to eat simple meals, and being able to use your money to stock and store up things that will save you and your family's life in the upcoming future, because it's already happening. And like when I go to the store, like people aren't buying beans like they were at a certain point. But when COVID first hit, everything on the shelf was empty. I have so many videos of going in different stores, and I was like, wow. People couldn't even find tissue. And that's something that I already had stored up, so I wasn't thinking about it. But I'm like, no tissue, no detergent, no dishwashing liquid, no garbage bags. We're not just talking about food. We're talking about medical supplies and hand sanitizer. I mean, the list of surviving is extreme. But we were taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you should have enough supplies in your house to last your family at least 6 months. And we should have been on it. But again, when we don't see things happening in the way that we expect them to happen, we don't prepare. And so that's the time. And those books are fundamental, because you can't get your mental together if you don't get your physical together. If your body is consuming the wrong foods, you're going to be down in spirit and energy. You're not going to, if you had to leave and evacuate your home, you're not going to be able to do that or last long periods of time. And like you said earlier, we're coming to a time where people are going to be ready to fight you over some food.
That's right.
People, it can be a can that's broken and bent up, and people will be trying to fight because that's hunger. They will kill you because they're trying to stay alive. So like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the time of what must be done, that's life. We all are trying to live. So if we're trying to live, a person, I think he mentioned something about a man who had a plane crash, and he said that, there was no survivors except for him. And he had to eat the dead bodies of the other passengers that passed away in order for him to survive.
That's right.
So we know, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad also mentioned, I believe, in How to Eat to Live, that we'll be looking at our babies and wanting to eat our babies because we're our little fat babies, and desiring to eat them because of the hunger that we will be in. So the first step is stocking and storing, and also learning to discipline yourself in those areas, so that if you have to go 2 or 3 days without food, you're not struggling like everybody in the world will be, because they're used to eating 3, 4, and 5 times a day.
Dang. Thank you. That's just so beautiful, because a lot of people would think that there's no way that I would eat my baby, my child. However, what we're talking about is the fact that, when you get to a certain stage in hunger, you become delusional. And in that delusion, then you begin to, like, if you've ever seen those old Bugs Bunny cartoons where one cartoon character looks at the other one and it turns into a rump roast or something like that. That is the reality of the situation when hunger really strikes. So yeah, so can you go in, I guess, because that was beautiful. So we definitely need to get How to Eat to Live. Now once we get How to Eat to Live, can you tell us about the foods that we should store and how we should store them?
Yes, sir. The first thing I recommend is definitely water. I stress that, and I can't stress that enough, because we think we see water, and it doesn't take long for water to be gone. You
Mm,
should be, every time you go out to the store, you should be getting a case or a gallon of water each and every time, because we need water for life. After air, then there's water, then there's food. And to be able to cook, to be able to wash, to be able to clean, you need water. Then comes the navy beans. That's a staple good, full of so many nutrients and proteins. You'll be able to survive for a long time. Your baby can eat those. You can mash them up. You can blend them up. I mean, so many different things you can do, and they last long, and you feel full. So every time you go to that store, if you see navy beans, grab the navy beans. They're very
mhm.
inexpensive now. I don't know if you have a Kroger where you are, but the Kroger or Walmart, they have them four for $1. I mean, four for $5. So
Right.
they're roughly $1.25. But I
Mm,
am seeing an increase in the navy beans. I've been to stores and they had them so much as $5 for 1 pound.
mm.
That's over 100% inflation for some navy
Right.
beans. And then
Right.
we have our staple goods program where you can get, so many staple goods, but at a certain point, you won't be able to get anything from the staple goods program as well, because
Mm,
everybody's trying to feed their families. And so every chance you get, you should be building up your survival kit with something. Beans. I do encourage lentils. I do encourage flour, sugar, butter, different things that you can have, that you can make other things with, and that can last long periods of time. And I say butter because I have a deep freezer, and I know
yeah.
you'll get through the winter time. You can put certain things in that deep freezer, and during the winter time, even if the deep freeze go out, if it's cold, your stuff in there will still be okay. And
Right.
so just get into the notion of knowing that something is happening and something is taking place, because we feel it, and just go in those stores and stock up. And there's so many things that I can list for you to stock up. But like I said, I've talked to so many people who haven't even started with the basics. And so I always go back to just get your water, get your navy beans, get, jarred food, start canning food. And if you don't know how to can, they have so many YouTube videos. Or you can reach out to family and friends that may can, some older, pioneers, or some elderly who love to can, that can show you how to can. And you can get in the process of doing that starting today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And can you tell us a little bit about why we shouldn't, if we can avoid at any cost, get the canned foods that are in the grocery stores?
Yes, sir. Of course, I shy away from that, but I always tell people, like, if you got to get it, just stock some things up to
Right.
have some extra options in your home. But those cans, those cans in the grocery stores, they're full of preservatives. A lot of the food is genetically modified. A lot of the food has been sitting for years and years and years, and so when you open up some of these cans, they've had frogs inside of green beans. They found, worms in some of these canned
Mm,
goods. They have the metal that's seeping into the juices of the cans. It's just so many different things. They don't have any nutritional value in most of these canned foods.
right.
And so you really want to can, because you know what you're eating. And if you go ahead and you plant a garden, and you're using you're using your fruit and vegetables, and you're canning them now, when you eat them, you'll have all the nutrition, just about when you got them out of your garden. And so that's what we want. We're not eating food just to make us feel good. We want it
Mm,
to give us the nutritional value so that we can live longer. And so I would shy away from getting those cans, because, like I said, it's really just poison. But it's just
right.
something, like I said, for us, if we need to pass time and get through that time and we have nothing else to eat, of course, I do suggest stocking and storing, but I wouldn't recommend getting canned goods without you canning yourself.
Right, absolutely. And like you said, look for those non-perishable foods, and if possible, can them yourself. Storing food. Now, I've know some of the things that we can do to store food is just, if we got shelf space or space under our bed, we can put some containers under there, and so there's a number of different places, because some of us may not have a home. We may live in an apartment, and so what are some ways, I guess, that we can begin to store food? And one of the things too that you mentioned about winter is that if we do have a backyard, one of the things we can do is dig a ditch, get a container, a metal container, and when the winter comes, we can use that as a freezer, if you will. Oh, she's adjusting. So
I'm sorry. No, you're
no, that's no
good.
problem.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to add to that. Definitely. I didn't think of that. That's a good idea, though. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's excellent. Make you a freezer. That's awesome. But
Hmm.
yeah, I would. What was that last part that you just said? I'm sorry,
Just
my mind went
storing
blank.
foods. Yeah, that's no problem. Just
Oh
storing
yeah, okay.
foods.
I got
That's
it. I got
ways.
it. It came back to me.
Hmm.
Yes, being in apartments, I tell people all the time: do you want to survive? If you want to survive, you have to make space for food. I bought those storage bins. And
Right.
that's how I store a lot. And I also get Mylar bags. And Mylar bags look like aluminum foil.
Here, I
You
got one too.
okay? Thank you. Look, I got one
Yeah.
over here. Yes, that's awesome. You can store everything in those Mylar bags. You can take beans out of their regular bag. You can just pour them in those Mylar bags. You use an iron, flat iron, and you seal it up. And then you can stock them inside of those storage beans. And then you put the label navy beans. So we know this storage bin has navy beans. But you don't store all your food together. You make sure you have different areas of storing. Don't put all your navy beans together. So if somebody comes and raids you, they done found your stash. You should
Oh,
have
okay.
you should have multiple places. You have some in the attic. You can have some, in your basement, under your bed, in your children's room. Water cases should be everywhere. Garage, some in your trunk. I mean, just find spaces and just put them in those bins, and it's convenient. Nobody will know that you have those things stored. But I would never look at space and say, hey, I don't want to store it because I don't have adequate space. If you have a room, you have space. I've
Mm.
lived in one room and I took a corner and I was able to stock up a whole bunch of containers of my survival stuff in those, very nice and neat and organized in that little space.
And you make up a good point when you saved your vehicle too, because we should have some supplies, a to-go bag, and some supplies
Mm-hmm.
that's in our food, just in case we do all of this preparing at home, but we have to leave our home because of a fire or a flood or whatnot. Hmm. And so I'll go into the next one. Is the food. I mean, not the food, but the water. Can you tell us a little bit about how to store up water? Because, for instance, I have some 55-gallon or 55-gallon barrel drums. And basically, I think that's sequestration, where you just attach your 55-gallon drums to your gutters, and of course the water can filter through. There's a whole process before the water goes into those drums, but you can save up water that way, if you can't get out into the store. Would you did you have any thing that you would like to add to that as far as how to store up the water?
Yes, sir. Can I be heard clear?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay, I just want to make sure it sounded like he was muffled on his end. Yes, sir. That's an excellent idea. Like you said, being able to store, having those containers on hand, having empty gallon containers and 5-gallon water jugs. Those big 5-gallon, those thick jugs, I have a lot of those. I think those are very convenient, and you may need to get a pump for it. Those big gallon jugs that you have, those can't be moved, I believe, once you have them sitting, once they fill up with water. And so wherever you get those, you want to make sure that where you have them at, that's where you want them to be. You don't want to be trying to move them and they're full of water. But that's excellent. But definitely water bottles, definitely the thicker material, those thinner gallon jugs. I know a lot of them have BPA in it. A lot of the EPA seeps into a lot of the water, especially if the temperature changes, like if it gets really hot or really cold too fast. And so I always think of the thicker 5-gallon jugs or higher, because you can store those in different temperatures. And I've also heard people say water expire. I'm one of the people that feel like water does not expire. Why I say that is because you're not just using the water for drinking. You're using
Right.
the water for cleaning, cooking, and bathing. And so, you would rather have that type of water than to go out and be in dirty water. There's people that had to drink water that had feces in it just so they can survive. So would you take that water and say, okay, this water has been sitting over 5 years, it's still, I'm gonna just throw it out? No, we're gonna keep whatever water that we have. But you definitely, like you said, want to have bowls and buckets to catch rainwater, and you want to have the water that comes down off your roof, and you want to have some type of container or some type of electronic device that you can make plug into your car or something like that. I know all about the converters and everything, or the butane or propane heat or gas stoves, so that you can boil that water, or some
Right.
water purification tablets that you have in your home. And right now, they're very inexpensive to get. A lot of these things people are not thinking about because they're not, their mind is not going into that extreme of
Right.
survival and disaster preparedness. But I guarantee you, it will save your life to get those things. And just, again, every time you go to the store, grab a container of water, store it up in your house somewhere, whether people can see it, but try to keep it where people can't see it.
Right, right, absolutely, absolutely. And so we'll begin to wrap it up, because we definitely want to get information on how individuals can learn more, either through contacting yourself, or a website, or books that they can purchase. Can you go into giving us, I guess, your contact information, if you will, and some other information that people can use to prepare for this famine?
Yes, sir. I was making. I'm still doing it, but I'm revamping my whole business. I was making go bags, disaster preparedness buckets,
Hmm.
and the beginning of COVID, I got so many requests and orders and questions and inquiries that I kind of got, I don't even know what the word, I guess, pushed back a little bit because I wasn't prepared for that amount of
Right.
people at the time. But I know that that is a very good field to be in. It's something that I know would make, a very good income for those who are into disaster preparedness and survival. But if you need any questions about surviving, you need any go bag list or survival list, you can definitely contact me. Divine by Nature, right there. At the bottom is my contact information for Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I'm under my regular name, which is Tequella Muhammad. And also, I wrote a children's book, and the children's books gears around disaster preparedness as well, because of course we're living in this pestilence from heaven in this pandemic right now, and our children are being affected. And I remember we were taught that children's hair by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would turn gray with what they see taking place. And
Mm.
so I feel like we have a duty and obligation as parents and family to educate ourselves as well as our children on what we see taking place, because they may not be aware of the judgment of this world, and they may not be aware of what's happening. Why, mom, are you stocking all those things in the house? Why are we buying so much water? Why do we have to, store food? And so that disaster preparedness children book is a book that you can sit down with your children, and it gives you a reminder, but it also gives your child that comfort to know that, number one, Allah got us, and number two, this is why we're doing what we're doing at this moment. And so
Mhm.
I have that link, but I have a book on my Etsy. It's also on Amazon, and you can also get it on Kindle. But it's a disaster readiness for children. And I believe if you type my name into Amazon, that book will come up. And if you
Okay.
have any other questions, again, you can email me at Tequella, TEQUELLAX, at gmail.com.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, because that's a good thing that you talked about the children, because you also, as you said earlier, you want to prepare them mentally, as well as spiritually, but you definitely want to prepare them mentally and physically, with the amount of snacking and things like that. You just want to make sure that when, it's crunch time, that they'll be able to handle it.
Yes.
So, closing out, any last words that you would like to say before we close on out?
No, I think everyone needs to go back and listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan message, the criterion. I think there was so much
Mhm.
in that message about what we're experiencing, what's about to happen. And I think we just need to break it down and parse it down and just find ourselves following the instructions. He also told us to stay indoors, stay sheltered in place. And I just want us to all take heed to that time because, again, Allah is the judgment is here, so Allah is coming to do his work. And if we don't be found being obedient to that will, we will be caught not ready. So all praise due to Allah.
All praises due to Allah. Thank you, Sister Tequila. I really appreciate you coming on here. And the thing is that we just touched on the food, basically disaster preparedness, with preparing the food. But this whole thing with disaster preparedness has so many different elements to it.
Okay.
So we would love to have you back in the future. And if you will just hold on, and I'll go ahead and close on out. So, with that, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for tuning in. We just touched on, just the basics, but in truth, begin to do some research for yourself, because this is why NNV news is so important, in all honesty, because it's a shame that you can watch these mainstream media networks and no one is saying anything to you about preparing yourself in your home to be a sanctuary and not a cemetery. So, with that, brothers and sisters, please, if you're on YouTube, please like please like this video. Please follow and subscribe. Like us on Facebook. And with all, as I say all the time, may God continue to bless you and your family with the light of truth and understanding. And for me, that has been the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as taught by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I urge you to look into that, as we see, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, the unraveling of this great nation. With that, I leave you in peace.